The Secret Science Behind Miracles by Max Freedom Long. Chapter 3. The Incredible Force Used in Magic, Where it Comes From, and Some of Its Uses. Before beginning the explanation of how firewalking and other magic is performed through the use of three invisible elements, which are still almost unknown in modern psychology, a few things need to be told about the religious beliefs of the Kahunas. The secret or body of information handed down from one magician to another was what may be called applied psychology for the most part. The element of religion was very small, especially if we accept the technical definition of religion in the best modern sense. Dr. Paul Tillich, professor of philosophical theology at Union Theological Seminary, writes, quote, "Magic is a special kind of interrelation between finite powers. Religion is the human relation to the infinite power and value. Magic is the exercise of immanent power. Religion is the subjection to the transcendent power." End quote. All religions are mixed with magic. Prayer is magic. Everything we do to gain benefits for ourselves in this life or the next is a part of magic. Magic is getting something from supernormal sources. Religion is worship of a supreme being and an acceptance of whatever it gives us, whether pleasant or unpleasant. While the Kahunas got from the common source of such tales, the Nile Valley and neighboring lands, the stories of Adam and Eve, the creation, the flood, and so on, and brought these tales with them to Polynesian, they did not share the concept of a personal and patriarchal God. The Kahunas taught that the human mind is not capable of understanding a form of consciousness unlike and superior to its own. Therefore, all human efforts to imagine the characteristics of a final, ultimate, and supreme God were a waste of time. They believed that there must be some ultimate creative source, but they did not pray to it. Take a flower, for example. It can have but a vague idea, if any, of the cow in the pasture. The cow can have a very vague idea of the nature and the motives of the herder. The herder, therefore, when he has decided that there must be a supreme being who created the universe, can picture it only as another man, although it cannot picture this great man except in vaguest terms. He fears him, prays to him in the hope of receiving favors, tries to bribe him with sacrifices or sacrificial austerities, tries to obey such commands as he imagines this supreme man has laid down, and last, worships him. In a like manner, the invisible world of spirits and spiritual beings is to us much as our world is to a fish in the sea. The fish is hardly aware of a world above his watery realm, but as we ascend in the scale of intelligence, we of the realm of earth and air can know and understand the fish in its depth, even while remaining unable to share those depths as a place in which to live. The Kahunas, while supposing that there were levels above levels of consciousness above man, as there were levels below him, paid scant heed to any level other than the one directly above our own. On this level existed the one thing we would call the superconscious part of the mind. They called it by various names, one of which, the favorite, was Aumakua, Aumakua. This translates as older, parental, utterly trustworthy spirit. As it takes two to be a parent, the Aumakua was considered to be a spirit composed of a male and female pair. All prayers and rites were addressed to this dual spirit, but because it was considered as much a part of ourselves as the conscious or subconscious is to the modern way of thinking, The parental spirit was worshipped. Not at all. It was loved. No sacrifices were made to it. No bribes were offered. It laid no commands on the lower selves. The relation was one of mutual love and trust, the parent and child relation. Very logically, the Kahunas taught that if any prayers to still higher beings were necessary, the parental spirit would know when they were needed and how to make them, doing for us such things as we are unable to do for ourselves, because we have minds of a lower level of ability. Because of this common sense attitude, the Kahunas remained simple and free from man-made dogmas to a surprising degree. They were direct and to the point. They could afford to be, for they possessed a system that actually worked. A workable system leaves little room for vagueness and dogmatic speculation. This practical system by which magic was performed left no unfilled needs of a philosophical nature for the Kahunas. They had therefore no saviors, no salvation, no heaven, no hell, no revealed religion with books in which were written, "Thus said God." In very fact, they had no books. Their language was never written until modern times. While few of us may ever wish to firewalk, this ancient rite is of great importance, because it is a clear demonstration of the fact that there is a magical power that may be called into action if we know the methods to use. Most of us pray for blessings of various kinds. The lore of the secret in quotes, brings definite and immediate results, much superior to those we get. We cannot pray for fire immunity and get it. Need more be said of the value to us of a study of the ancient lore? Dr. Brigham, it will be recalled, had analyzed the basic nature of magic. Before understanding it, he had told me to watch for number one, a form of consciousness which used, number two, some form of force, and manipulated that force through some kind of physical, manipulated that force through some invisible kind of physical matter. Okay, let me read that sentence again. Dr. Brigham, it will be recalled, had analyzed the basic nature of magic before understanding it. He had told me to watch for a form of consciousness which used some form of force and manipulated that force through some invisible kind of physical matter. The Amakua, or superconscious part of mind, is the consciousness involved in giving fire immunity. The force it uses in this work is called mana by the Kahunas and is known as the vital force. It is electrical in its nature and shows strong magnetic qualities. The invisible substance through which the vital force acts is called aka, or shadowy body stuff. As we already know, there is such a thing as vital force. Let me begin my presentation of Huna, in brackets, the secret, by pointing out some of the things already known about the uses and natures of this force, and then go on to things better known and explained by the Kahunas. It will be seen that the Kahuna explanation also covers much of what has been unexplained in the field of psychical research. The three elements, consciousness, force, and invisible matter, give us three measuring sticks with which to measure all magic. Notice how they apply more and more to magic as we come to see it unfold. Case number 7. And then it says in brackets, mixed. The three invisibles behind magic. Preliminary notes. In order to present a detailed and clear picture of the materials under discussion, I will cite some well-known types of psychic phenomena, beginning with table tipping. When we place our hands on a table and tip it, that is like a dog wagging its tail. When we place our hands on a table and some invisible being tips it, or when the table lifts and levitates from the floor with all hands on its top, that is the tail wagging the dog. However, when the table or other objects move of their own accord with no hands near them, the homely simile fails, and we are face to face with one or the other of two forms of consciousness which may be involved in magic. The first form of these two forms of consciousness is the ordinary ghost. It makes noises and bangs things around in a senseless or childish way. It is what the Germans called a poltergeist, or a noisy ghost. But if the moving is done as if by a reasoning and adult ghost, it is normal psychic phenomena. The second form of consciousness is that of superconscious type of being. Its work is characterized by the changing of an object into an invisible form before moving it, perhaps moving it many miles. This type of movement will be discussed later on. At present, we are mainly dealing with the force used to cause the movement. The cases. The bulk of the cases which I shall recite in my report, unless it is specifically stated that they come from other sources, will have been drawn from the Encyclopedia of Psychic Science, a monumental and authoritative book by Dr. Nandor Fodor, Nandor Fodor, who, with his staff, collected and digested all available reports and accounts relating to psychic phenomena during the 100 years prior to 1933. His evaluation of opinions and hypotheses have been both sane and wise. No better or more comprehensive source book will be found in any reference library. A famous psychical researcher, Gambier Bolton, Gambier Gambier Bolton, in his book Psychic Force, writes, quote, "During any meal with Mrs. L.G. Corner," and then in brackets it says, "Florence Cook, a famous and much studied medium," close bracket, "in one's own house, and whilst she's engaged in eating and drinking, both hands being visible all the time, the heavy dining table will commence to quiver, setting the glasses shaking, plates, knives, forks, and spoons in motion, and then to rock and sway from side to side, occasionally going so far as to tilt up at one end or at one side, and all the time raps and tappings will be heard on the table in many different parts of the room, taking a meal with her in a public restaurant is a somewhat serious matter." End quote. B. Sir Francis Crooks, let me start this over again. B. Sir William Crooks. I don't know where the other name came from. All right. So, Sir William Crooks, Crookes, in his Researches is his book, writes, quote, "The instances in which heavy bodies, such as tables, chairs, sofas, etc., have been moved when the medium was not touching them are very numerous. I will briefly mention a few of the most striking. My own chair has been twisted partly around whilst my feet were off the floor. The chair was seen by all present to move slowly up to the table from a far corner when all were watching it. On another occasion, an armchair moved to where we were sitting, and then moved slowly back again, a distance of about 3 feet, at my request. On 3 successive evenings, a small table moved slowly across the room under conditions which I had specially prearranged, so as to answer any objection which might be raised to the evidence. End quote. C. Cesar Lombroso, Cesar Lombroso, the famous Italian psychiatrist and criminal anthropologist, described in La Stampa, Stampa, of Turin, Turin, his observations in a wine cellar, where, in the absence of any living person, bottles of wine were frequently broken. He wrote, quote, I went into the cellar, at first in complete darkness, and heard the noise of broken glasses and bottles rolled at my feet. The bottles were arranged in 6 compartments, one above another. In the middle was a rough table on which I had 6 lighted candles placed, supposing that spirit phenomena would cease in the bright light. But on the contrary, I saw 3 empty bottles standing on the ground, roll as though pushed by a finger, and break near the table. To obviate any trick, I felt and carefully examined by the light of the candle all the full bottles which were on the racks, and assured myself that there was no cord or string that could explain these movements. After a few minutes, first 2, then 4, then 2 other bottles on the 2nd and 3rd rack detached themselves and fell to the ground, not suddenly, but as though carried by someone. And after their descent, rather than fall, 6 of them broke on the wet floor, already soaked with wine. Only 2 remained whole. Then, at the moment of leaving the cellar, just as I was going out, I heard another bottle break. End quote. Comment. Comment on the above cases, as well as all cases which will later be cited, will fall into 3 parts. First, we shall have to consider what is known in the modern world relative to such cases. Second, we shall have to consider what the lore of the Kahunas may add to the information. And third, we shall have to weigh all evidence as best we can in this period prior to exhaustive experimental work, and make our guesses, do our speculating. Whilst no effort will be made to divide comment into these 3 parts, the reader will do well to remember that these are the 3 very important methods of approach to the fascinating problems which confront us. As there is nothing to be learned and nothing to be gained from those who still elect to deny all the phenomena around which this investigation revolves, no time will be wasted in argument unless there is some valid objection which must be noted for its possible significance. Modern explanations of table tipping and the movement of objects by unseen agencies have not improved on the classical one, that the spirits of the deceased or similar disembodied spirits are responsible for all the phenomena. The Kahunas heartily agree that spirits are responsible, but give added information as to the nature and classification of the spirits. Efforts have been made to explain these mysterious occurrences without falling back on spirit hypothesis. These efforts will bear consideration for the reason that they represent the alternative that we may accept if we discard the idea of spirits. Dr. Nander Fodor, F-O-D-O-R, in his Encyclopedia of Psychic Science writes, quote, exteriorization of motricity was postulated in the case of Eusapia Palladino, a noted medium, by Morselli, Fleurno, Gelly, and Carrington. End quote. Okay, I'm going to spell some of these names in case they're of interest to you. Eusapia, This is the noted medium. And then the other names are Morselli, Flournoy, Geley, and Carrington. This motricity is thought to be a combination of electricity and vital force or nervous energy. It is postulated that this force, whatever it is, can leave the body and enter the object which shows movement. Open brackets. This covers the first unit of our Kahuna measuring stick, that of the force or power involved. The second unit is the intelligence involved to put the force to use in moving objects, and the third is the invisible substance used as a hand to let the force act upon the moving objects. Close bracket. The intelligence which causes the movement of the various objects is supposed to have the ability to cause this motricity or force to come out of the body of a living person and cause the movement. The intelligence is also credited with the ability to draw invisible, sometimes slightly visible and slightly tangible, substance from a living body from the living body of a mediumistic person or sitter at a seance, and make from it a hand or other limb through which to use the force. This substance is called ectoplasm. A different explanation is to be found in the postulation that the intelligence of the subconscious part of the mind of the living medium, and that is, under certain mysterious conditions, can cause the motricity to leave the body together with the ectoplasmic substance, and then cause objects to move. The subconscious is said to be causing this activity for the reason that, were the conscious mind at work, the medium would certainly be aware of the activity and in control of it. And I'm going to pause here and continue with this audio next time. So, till soon.